It's wonderful to have you here. You close your eyes tonight believing you are stepping away from the day. But your brain has a different understanding of when the real work begins. How does your brain simulate the future during the night? Welcome to Sleepy Science Facts. Wherever you are right now, perhaps lying still, with a choice still unmade. A question that followed you here into the quiet. Allow yourself to set it down now. We'll move through 100 brain science facts about the sleeping mind. From the hippocampus building tomorrow from today's fragments, to REM hours rehearsing uncertainty without fear, to what the night quietly hands back at dawn. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're where tomorrow is already being quietly assembled. Let your mind release what it carries. And now we begin. How does your brain simulate the future during the night? For most of the 20th century, scientists assumed sleep was primarily a backward-looking process, a time for the brain to replay the day and consolidate what had been learned. But a growing body of evidence is rewriting that story. Research using brain imaging, electrode recordings, and sleep deprivation studies has shown that the sleeping brain is not merely archiving the past. It is constructing the future. The hippocampus generates novel sequences from memory fragments. The default mode network projects social scenarios forward. Sharp wave ripples broadcast compressed simulations across the cortex. Every night, without your awareness or instruction, your sleeping brain is quietly rehearsing tomorrows you have not yet lived. That rehearsal is what the next 100 facts are about. Sleep is not a passive state. The idea that the brain simply powers down during sleep has been thoroughly overturned by modern neuroscience. Brain imaging studies show that during REM sleep, neural activity in associative cortical regions reaches levels comparable to, and sometimes exceeding, waking consciousness. Different networks activate with purpose, coordinating across regions that rarely collaborate so freely during the day. The prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, the default mode network, the amygdala, all of them show distinct and purposeful patterns of activation depending on which sleep stage is occurring. The sleeping brain is not idle. It is working on a project that the waking brain cannot easily complete on its own. The hippocampus, a small seahorse-shaped structure deep in the brain, sits at the center of the brain's future simulation system. For decades, researchers understood the hippocampus primarily as a memory archive, the place where new experiences are encoded and stored before being transferred to the cortex. But a quieter and more intriguing function has emerged from careful study. The hippocampus is also a scene construction engine. It assembles environments, people, sequences, and possibilities from stored fragments, not just to reconstruct what happened, but to generate what could happen. This forward-looking capacity depends directly on the richness of the memory library it has access to, which is one reason deep, undisturbed sleep, which strengthens that library, makes the brain better at imagining the future. Memory replay during sleep is not a simple recording. Researchers using implanted electrodes in animal studies, and later non-invasive imaging in humans, have observed that the hippocampus replays the day's experiences during sleep in ways that are compressed, reshuffled, and sometimes reversed in time. A sequence that took minutes to experience may be replayed in milliseconds. More importantly, The brain does not replay only what happened. It replays variations, recombining elements of memory in configurations that were never actually experienced. This recombinatorial replay is the neurological foundation of the brain's capacity to simulate hypothetical futures. If the sleeping brain can replay the past with variation, it can begin to construct what has not yet occurred. During sleep, a specific process called memory consolidation has a hidden forward-looking component that researchers now call prospective consolidation. When you sleep after learning something new, the brain does not simply cement that information in place. It integrates the new material with related knowledge already stored in the cortex, building bridges between ideas and concepts. Those bridges are what allow you to generalize from past experience to future anticipation. The night after a difficult meeting, a confusing decision, or an anxious afternoon, your sleeping brain is quietly assembling the conceptual scaffolding you will need to navigate something similar when it arrives. Consolidation is not only preservation, it is preparation. REM, sleep. The stage characterized by rapid eye movement and vivid dreaming appears to be especially suited for emotional future simulation. Research published in recent years has highlighted a striking feature of REM sleep that makes it uniquely suited for this work. The brain's primary alerting chemical, norepinephrine, is almost completely suppressed during REM. This chemical quiet allows the brain to reprocess emotionally charged memories and rehearse uncertain future scenarios without re-triggering the full physiological stress response. In practical terms, this means your sleeping brain can rehearse frightening or ambiguous situations, the difficult conversation, the unknown outcome, the looming decision, in a low-threat internal environment. You can simulate the future without the cortisol. By morning, that future feels a little less impossible. The prefrontal cortex, the region most associated with deliberate planning and rational decision-making, partially deactivates during REM sleep. This is not a failure in the system. It appears to be a feature. With the prefrontal cortex quieted, the sleeping brain is freed from its habit of logical constraint. Associations that the waking mind would immediately discard as implausible are allowed to form. Remote connections between memories are explored. Unusual combinations are tested and evaluated. Some researchers describe this as a nightly creativity reset, the sleeping brain exploring the full possibility space of future scenarios rather than only the sensible, predictable corner of it. When you wake, many of those combinations have already been quietly filtered and the most useful ones held. Dream content is not random noise, even when it feels that way. Studies using detailed dream logging and next-day psychological assessments have found that dreams frequently involve upcoming concerns, events the sleeper is anticipating, decisions they are weighing, situations they feel uncertain about. This anticipatory dreaming appears to reflect the brain's simulation engine running in observable form. The stranger the dream, the more associative connections may be in play. While most dreams fade quickly on waking, the emotional processing and scenario rehearsal they represent appears to persist in the form of improved mood regulation, clearer intuition about decisions, and reduced anxiety about anticipated events. The dream is not what you remember. It is what the dream did. There is a specific pattern of brainwave activity during sleep called sharp wave ripples. And researchers now believe these brief, powerful bursts of neural activity are a core mechanism of future simulation. Sharp wave ripples originate in the hippocampus and propagate outward to the cortex during slow wave sleep, the deep, dreamless phases of the night. During each ripple, which lasts only a fraction of a second, a compressed replay of a recent experience is broadcast across the sleeping brain. What has emerged from recent research is that these ripples do not only replay what happened. Researchers theorize that these ripples may also generate novel sequences, possible futures assembled from pieces of the past, and broadcast those scenarios across the cortex for evaluation while the rest of the brain is deeply quiet. Scientists have studied what happens to future thinking when sleep is disrupted, and the results are consistent and sobering. Sleep-deprived individuals perform significantly worse on tasks requiring them to imagine hypothetical scenarios, plan for uncertain futures, or generate flexible solutions to novel problems. This impairment is not simply the result of being tired and slow. Imaging studies show that specific neural networks involved in prospective thinking, including the default mode network and the hippocampal entorhinal system, are measurably disrupted after even one night of poor sleep. The brain's simulation engine requires adequate sleep to function. Without it, tomorrow becomes harder to picture, harder to prepare for, and harder to navigate when it arrives. The central question this video asks has a direct answer in what sleep deprivation takes away. The default mode network, a collection of brain regions that activates during rest and inward-focused thought, plays a central role in both dreaming and future simulation. This network, which includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate, and the angular gyrus, is most active during mind-wandering, daydreaming, and self-referential thought during wakefulness. During sleep, particularly during REM, the default mode network becomes highly active in a related but distinct pattern. Researchers believe this nocturnal activity supports the brain's process of simulating social futures, imagining how others might respond, what choices might unfold, how relationships might change across time. Your sleeping brain is quietly rehearsing your social world while the rest of you is still. Animals show evidence of future-oriented replay during sleep as well. Rats navigating mazes have been observed via electrode recordings to replay not only the paths they ran during the day, but sequences corresponding to paths they had not yet traveled. What researchers describe as forward simulation of possible routes. Several well-cited experiments, hippocampal cells fired during sleep in novel sequences that extended beyond the day's experience, suggesting the sleeping brain was constructing something beyond simple replay. This forward-looking activity has been observed in multiple species, pointing to a deeply conserved biological function. The sleeping brain across the animal kingdom. appears to have always been in the business of rehearsing what comes next. Human memory is not a recording. It is a reconstruction. And this reconstructive quality is what makes memory such a powerful engine for future simulation. Every time you remember something, the brain does not play back a fixed file. It reassembles the experience from fragments, filling gaps with inference and expectation. This means that memories and imagined futures share the same neural machinery. Brain imaging studies have confirmed that remembering the past and imagining the future activate nearly identical regions, including the hippocampus, the lateral prefrontal cortex, and the posterior parietal cortex. Sleep, which strengthens and reorganizes memories, is therefore also strengthening and reorganizing the very building blocks of your imagined futures. What the night gives back to memory, it also gives to anticipation. Emotional memories receive preferential consolidation during sleep. When you experience something emotionally significant, a difficult decision, a moment of fear, an encounter you cannot stop turning over, that experience is prioritized by the sleeping brain for deeper processing. Researchers believe this emotional prioritization serves a future adaptive function. The events that carry the most emotional charge are typically the ones most likely to recur in some form, or to require careful navigation again. By consolidating emotional memories more deeply, the sleeping brain ensures that the simulation engine has rich, high-resolution material to work with when constructing anticipatory scenarios. What keeps you awake with worry at night is, in a meaningful sense, being turned into preparation. Sleep has been shown to improve performance on tasks requiring foresight and planning, not merely on tasks requiring memory recall. In a series of studies conducted at sleep research centers in Europe and North America, participants who slept between a learning session and a planning task showed measurably better performance than those who remained awake during the interval. The improvement was not only in remembering the rules of the task, it was in anticipating future states, planning multiple steps ahead, and adapting flexibly when conditions changed. Sleep appeared to enhance the participants' ability to think forward, not only to retain backward. This forward enhancement is one of the most compelling arguments for understanding sleep as a future preparation system rather than simply a memory consolidation system. Overnight insight is a well-documented phenomenon in sleep research. Participants given complex problems that require discovering a hidden rule often show a sudden, discontinuous leap in performance after a night of sleep, even without consciously working on the problem during waking hours. Researchers attribute this to offline processing. While the person sleeps, the brain continues to explore the problem space, testing associations and combinations that the focused waking mind overlooked or dismissed. The experience of waking with a solution, or with a clarity that was not there the night before, is not magical thinking. It is the output of a simulation engine that worked while the conscious mind rested. Tomorrow's answer was quietly assembled tonight. The brain's threat simulation function operates most freely during sleep. This may be why frightening dreams, unsettling as they are to experience, appear to serve a preparatory purpose. Research by Lampros Perogamvros and colleagues in Geneva has shown that people who experience more negative dream content during sleep show lower amygdala reactivity, a reduced fear response, when exposed to threatening images while awake the following day. The sleeping brain appears to be running controlled rehearsals of difficult scenarios, allowing the waking brain to respond to similar situations with greater steadiness. A frightening dream, at moderate intensity, is not a malfunction. It may be the brain practicing something difficult in a space where the cost of the rehearsal is only the discomfort of the dream itself. Sleep architecture, the specific cycling between sleep stages, matters for future simulation in ways that go beyond simple total sleep duration. A typical night moves through 4 to 6 cycles, each lasting roughly 90 minutes, with each cycle containing periods of light sleep, deep slow-wave sleep, and REM sleep. The proportion of REM sleep increases across the night, with the longest and richest REM periods occurring in the final hours before natural waking. This means that cutting sleep short by even an hour or two disproportionately reduces the very sleep most associated with emotional processing, creative recombination, and future scenario rehearsal. What feels like a small sacrifice of morning sleep may be a large sacrifice of the brain's most sophisticated forward preparation work. The entorhinal cortex, a thin region that sits between the hippocampus and the broader cortex, acts as a gateway for future simulation during sleep. It encodes not only the content of experiences but the spatial and temporal context in which they occurred. The when, the where, and the sequence. During sleep, the entorhinal cortex communicates this contextual information to the hippocampus, which uses it to generate plausible future scenarios grounded in the specific texture of actual lived experience. Damage to the entorhinal cortex impairs not only spatial navigation, but the ability to imagine future events in realistic, contextually appropriate ways. The sleeping brain uses this region like a timestamp and internal map, ensuring that its simulations feel like genuine possibilities rather than abstract fantasies. A research technique called targeted memory reactivation has demonstrated that the brain's future simulation processes can be gently guided from outside. When participants learn a task associated with a particular sound, and that sound is played softly during subsequent slow-wave sleep, consolidation of the associated memory is enhanced. More recently, researchers have explored whether this technique can also influence prospective processing, nudging the sleeping brain towards specific scenarios or problem domains. Early findings suggest that memories cued during sleep are not only better recalled upon waking, but better integrated into the flexible, generalizable knowledge that supports future planning. The simulation engine can, in subtle ways, be pointed toward particular territory. Children sleep significantly more than adults, and the reasons are likely connected to the sheer volume of future simulation work their brains need to perform. A newborn sleeps up to 18 hours a day, spending roughly half that time in an REM equivalent state called active sleep. Researchers believe this extended, REM-heavy sleep serves a foundational developmental function. The young brain is not only consolidating today's experiences, but rapidly constructing working models of how the physical and social world operates. Models that will allow it to anticipate, predict, and navigate an unknown future. Every hour of childhood sleep is, in a very real sense, the brain building its internal library of possible futures. Sleep is how children learn to understand what hasn't happened yet. The phenomenon of sleep-dependent motor learning offers a window into how future preparation operates at the physical level. When people practice a new physical skill, playing a musical passage, learning a surgical technique, training a specific movement pattern, and then sleep. Their performance the following day is consistently better than it was when they stopped practicing. The improvement does not arise from additional practice during sleep. It appears to come from the brain reorganizing the motor sequences during sleep, optimizing neural pathways and reducing errors in the internal simulation of the movement. The sleeping brain rehearses the future performance of the body, quietly refining it before the next attempt. The rehearsal happens in the dark, and the improvement arrives with the morning. Social cognition, the ability to understand, predict, and navigate other people's thoughts, feelings, and intentions, is deeply sleep-dependent, and its dependence on sleep appears to be tied directly to the future simulation function. Theory of mind, the capacity to model another person's mental state, requires the kind of flexible, associative thinking that sleep supports. Studies have found that sleep-deprived individuals show reduced accuracy in reading emotional expressions, reduced empathy, and impaired performance on tasks requiring them to predict another person's behavior. Each of these capacities is a form of social simulation, imagining a future in which another person responds in a particular way. Sleep is part of how you prepare for every conversation you haven't had yet. The glymphatic system, the brain's waste clearance network, becomes dramatically more active during sleep, particularly during deep, slow-wave sleep. During these phases, the spaces between brain cells expand, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to flush metabolic waste products from the brain at a rate roughly 10 times higher than during wakefulness. Among the compounds cleared is amyloid beta, a protein associated with cognitive decline. A brain that is better maintained through regular, deep sleep retains the neural flexibility, synaptic health, and associative richness needed to simulate future scenarios with accuracy and nuance. It is worth noting that direct evidence for the glymphatic system's specific role in humans remains an active area of research, though findings from animal models are well established and continue to inform the field. How does your brain simulate the future during the night? The answer is not a single mechanism but a quiet orchestration. The hippocampus and entorhinal cortex assembling scenario fragments from stored experience. The default mode network, projecting social and self-referential futures. Sharp wave ripples broadcasting compressed simulations across the sleeping cortex. REM, sleep providing the emotional rehearsal space with stress neurochemicals quieted. The glymphatic system, maintaining the entire apparatus. Sleep is not the interruption of your life. It is the part of your life where your brain quietly rehearses what comes next. Every night, in the dark and the stillness, you are being prepared for a future you haven't yet seen. You've been with us for a while now, and your breathing has likely softened without you noticing. A soft subscribe helps another sleepless mind find this sanctuary too. Now, let's pause together, one sleepy soul at a time. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each tiny process happening inside you right now. Trillions of cells working in silence. Heart beating, lungs breathing, the brain quietly tending to tomorrow. Notice the gentle weight of your limbs, the warmth where your body meets the surface beneath you. You are a complete, self-regulating system. And right now, Your only task is to allow that system to continue its work. Now we continue. Memory replay during sleep follows an organizational logic that appears to prioritize what is most uncertain. Research suggests the sleeping brain devotes more replay time to memories associated with unresolved situations, incomplete tasks, and open-ended questions. This reflects what some researchers have connected to the Zeigarnik effect, the well-documented finding that incomplete tasks are remembered more persistently than completed ones. The brain flags unfinished business for extended overnight processing. And this processing includes not just replaying what happened, but projecting forward into possible resolutions. The decisions you haven't made, the conversations that remain unfinished, are being worked on while you sleep. They are not abandoned. They are being attended to. Slow oscillations, large sweeping waves of electrical activity that move across the cortex during deep sleep, coordinate the transfer of memory from the hippocampus to the neocortex. During each slow oscillation, a window of neural excitability opens, and within that window, the hippocampus sends bursts of information to the cortex for longer-term storage. This nightly transfer is not simply archival. The cortex does not just receive and file memory as is. It integrates the incoming information with existing cortical knowledge, creating the kind of generalized, abstracted understanding that supports prediction and planning. The slow oscillation is the heartbeat of overnight learning, and each pulse moves the brain a little closer to understanding what might come next. Creative problem-solving is measurably enhanced by sleep, and the enhancement appears to depend specifically on the integration of distant, weakly associated memories that occurs during REM sleep. In studies where participants are given problems requiring creative leaps rather than logical steps, those who sleep show a disproportionate advantage over those who simply rest while awake. The sleeping brain is not more creative because it is relaxed. It is more creative because during REM sleep, the neural connections between normally separate knowledge domains open more widely, allowing combinations that the focused waking mind would dismiss. When you feel stuck on a decision, the most productive thing you may be able to do is sleep on it, and mean it. Fear extinction, the process by which the brain learns that something previously associated with threat is now safe, is profoundly sleep-dependent, and it is directly relevant to the brain's future simulation function. When someone undergoes exposure therapy for anxiety, the new safety learning that accumulates during treatment needs to be consolidated during sleep to become durable. Without adequate sleep after fear extinction training, the original fear memory tends to return. With sleep, the new safety association takes deeper hold. Sleep doesn't just rehearse possible futures. It can also revise the emotional tone of anticipated events, gradually shifting how threatening or manageable tomorrow feels. The night can soften what the day has frightened. The relationship between sleep and decision-making has been studied across a wide range of contexts, from medical professionals making clinical judgments to students selecting between ambiguous options. The consistent finding is that sleep-deprived individuals show impaired simulation of future consequences, the ability to mentally project the outcome of a choice, to run the scenario forward and evaluate the possible endpoints, depends on hippocampal prefrontal circuitry that is particularly vulnerable to sleep loss. Well-rested people make decisions that better account for future states, not because they are more intelligent, but because their simulation engine is running with adequate resources. Sleeping well is not merely feeling better. It is being able to think further ahead. There is growing evidence that the quality of sleep the night before a major event, an examination, a performance, a difficult conversation, affects not just physiological readiness, but the capacity to access and deploy prior preparation. Sleep-dependent consolidation in the hours before an event appears to reorganize the relevant skills and knowledge into more readily accessible form, reducing the cognitive load of retrieval and allowing more mental resources to be devoted to real-time execution. The night before a challenge matters, not in a vague sense, but because the sleeping brain specifically prepares the relevant neural pathways for what is about to be demanded of them. Rest before the moment is part of the preparation for the moment. The theta rhythm, a 4 to 8 Hz oscillation, most prominent in the hippocampus, plays a coordinating role in both memory encoding and future simulation during sleep and wakefulness. During active navigation, physical or mental, the theta rhythm provides a temporal framework within which sequential information is organized. During sleep, theta activity during REM appears to support the same sequencing function, organizing simulated future scenarios into coherent, navigable structures. The theta rhythm is the brain's internal metronome for anticipation itself, running through the sleeping mind like a quiet, purposeful tide, keeping simulations moving in a direction rather than dissolving into fragments of disconnected possibility. People who report higher levels of anxiety about future events tend to show distinctive patterns of sleep disturbance, specifically increased wakefulness and reduced slow-wave sleep in the early part of the night, when consolidation of recent emotional experiences is most active. This is a meaningful observation because it reveals a feedback loop. Anxiety about the future disrupts the sleep that is needed to process that anxiety and build a more manageable internal model of what is coming. Understanding this loop is not meant to add pressure about sleep. It is meant to offer a reframe. Sleep, approached gently and without demand, is a quiet form of self-preparation, a kindness extended to the future self. Tonight, napping has been shown to offer a partial version of the overnight future simulation benefit, particularly for emotional processing and creative recombination. A 90-minute nap that includes a full cycle of sleep stages, including a period of REM sleep, produces measurable improvements in subsequent performance on tasks requiring insight, emotional regulation, and flexible thinking. For individuals navigating intensive work, significant personal decisions, or major life transitions, the strategic use of sleep, including daytime naps, may represent one of the most underutilized cognitive preparation tools available. The brain does not require darkness or night to begin its simulation work. It requires sufficient time and sufficient depth. The experience of déjà vu, the uncanny feeling of having lived a present moment before, may in some cases be a byproduct of the brain's future simulation processes. When the hippocampus constructs a simulation during sleep that closely matches a subsequent real-world experience, the recognition systems may register a false familiarity, the sense that this has happened before, when what the brain actually recognizes is its own prior simulation of the moment. This interpretation sits at the speculative frontier of research and should be held lightly. But it is a beautiful possibility. The feeling that you have been here before may, in some cases, be evidence that your sleeping brain sent you here first. The brain's capacity to simulate the future degrades along a specific dimension with sleep deprivation. The ability to imagine distal futures, events far ahead in time, declines faster than the ability to imagine proximal ones. Well-rested individuals can construct vivid, emotionally textured simulations of events months or years away. Sleep-deprived individuals tend to collapse their future horizon, with imagination narrowing toward the immediate. This temporal compression may contribute to the impulsivity and short-term thinking associated with sleep loss, not as a moral failing, but as a neurological consequence of a simulation engine running on insufficient resources. Sleep, in the most literal cognitive sense, helps you see further ahead. The hippocampus encodes spatial maps, mental representations of environments, and these maps are replayed and extended during sleep in ways that support future navigation. In studies where participants learn a virtual environment and then sleep, their subsequent ability to navigate novel areas of that environment improves beyond what practice alone would predict. The sleeping brain appears to extrapolate from the known map, filling in plausible features of unexplored territory. This spatial extrapolation is a small but elegant example of the brain's broader future simulation function. Using what is known about the structure of a domain to project intelligently into what is unknown, your sleeping brain is always filling in the edges of the map. There is a meaningful relationship between the richness of autobiographical memory and the ability to simulate personal futures. People with hippocampal damage that impairs autobiographical memory also show striking deficits in imagining their own futures. They can produce generic descriptions of possible events, but cannot construct the specific sensory, contextually grounded scenarios that define genuine future thinking. This relationship suggests that every personal memory you carry is also a building block for a future you haven't lived yet. Sleep, which consolidates and preserves those personal memories, is preserving the raw material of your capacity to imagine yourself in tomorrow. What the night protects in memory, it also protects in possibility. The body's circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour biological clock, regulated primarily by light exposure, coordinates the timing of sleep stages in ways that optimize overnight future simulation. Cortisol follows a circadian pattern that keeps it low during sleep and rises sharply in the hours before natural waking, gently preparing the body and mind for the day. Growth hormone is released during deep, slow-wave sleep, supporting cellular repair. Melatonin, rising in darkness, facilitates the transition to sleep. The circadian clock is not just a sleep scheduler. It is a preparation system, timing each biological process to ensure that waking begins with a mind as ready as possible for what the day will bring. Sleep appears to support what researchers call schema formation, the gradual consolidation of individual experiences into generalized knowledge structures that allow the brain to categorize, predict, and navigate new situations efficiently. Schemas are compressed simulations, internal models of how the world typically works, built from accumulated experience. During sleep, individual memories are progressively abstracted into these broader patterns, a process that appears to involve coordinated dialogue between the hippocampus and neocortex. The more richly developed your schemas, the more efficiently your brain can construct future simulations. applying a general pattern to a new specific situation without needing to reason from the beginning. Sleep is how experience slowly becomes intuition. You're still here with me, still listening while thoughts drift like quiet currents beneath the surface. Just notice. Don't judge. Just notice where the mind is resting right now. We're tracing the sleeping brain's hidden preparation together. And we'll keep going, slowly, without hurrying anywhere. The amygdala, the brain's emotional processing hub, is also involved in anticipating future rewards and positive events, not only threats. During sleep, the amygdala participates in the emotional tagging of simulated future scenarios, assigning weight to possible outcomes. This tagging is what makes future simulations motivationally relevant. Not merely intellectual exercises, but felt projections that influence subsequent behavior. When sleep is disrupted, amygdala reactivity becomes dysregulated, and future simulations lose their emotional calibration. The morning after poor sleep, tomorrow can feel both more threatening and less rewarding, not because the world has changed, but because the simulation is running without its full emotional precision. Research on post-traumatic stress has revealed, in a difficult and meaningful way, what happens when the future simulation system is overwhelmed by past experience. In PTSD, the normal process of fear extinction during sleep is disrupted, and the brain becomes trapped in repeated involuntary rehearsals of past trauma rather than adaptive simulations of possible futures. Nightmares in PTSD are not the helpful threat rehearsal seen in healthy populations. They are unwanted replays that resist the extinction process. Understanding this distinction has guided treatment approaches including imagery rehearsal therapy, which works by training the sleeping brain to redirect its simulation toward alternative, resolved scenarios. Even in its most painful forms, the dream system reflects the brain's persistent effort to prepare. One of the more curious findings in sleep research is that the brain can carry intentions across the boundary into sleep. In studies of lucid dreaming, the state in which a sleeper becomes aware they are dreaming, researchers have found that with training, individuals can carry specific intentions from waking into the dream state and act on them, perform assigned actions, explore targeted scenarios, or work toward solutions. This is directed future simulation during sleep. While lucid dreaming is a specialized state, not representative of typical sleep, it demonstrates that the boundary between intention and dream is more permeable than closed eyes suggest. The sleeping mind is not as separate from deliberate life as sleep itself might imply. Sleep-dependent skill transfer, where training on one task improves performance on a related but distinct task, provides evidence that the sleeping brain extracts general principles rather than simply storing specific performances. Musicians who practice a passage and sleep before attempting a similar but novel passage show greater facility than those who practice without intervening sleep. The sleeping brain is not filing a recording of what was done. It is extracting the underlying principle, the spatial logic, the procedural structure, and preparing it for application to situations that haven't arrived yet. Sleep is how specific experience becomes transferable wisdom. Sleep timing, the circadian phase during which sleep occurs, influences which aspects of future simulation are most supported. Morning sleep, Risha in REM, preferentially consolidates emotional memories, and supports associative, flexible thinking associated with creative future projection. Evening sleep, richer in slow-wave sleep, preferentially consolidates factual and procedural memories and supports structured, sequential future planning. This suggests that the full architecture of a night's sleep, from the slow-wave density of the early hours to the REM richness of the later ones, serves different but complementary aspects of the brain's forward preparation. The whole night is the preparation. No phase of it is dispensable. Research on animals in complex natural environments has found that the richness of memory replayed during sleep scales with the complexity of the environments navigated during waking. Rats placed in enriched environments with more routes, more choices, and more objects show richer hippocampal replay sequences during subsequent sleep than rats in simpler environments. This suggests that the brain's overnight simulation capacity is responsive to the demands placed on it during the day. A life rich with experience, decisions navigated, environments explored, relationships tended, provides the raw material for a more sophisticated internal model of the world, and therefore a more textured simulation of the future. Experience during the day is the data. Sleep at night is the processing. The sleeping brain maintains a subtle awareness of its environment, selectively processing certain sounds, particularly those associated with personal relevance or potential threat, even during stages of sleep that appear deeply quiescent. This selective monitoring is itself a form of future simulation in real time. The brain continuously runs a low-level prediction model of the environment, comparing incoming sensory signals to expected patterns and flagging deviations for possible arousal. This is why a parent wakes to the cry of their own child but sleeps through a similar sound from elsewhere. The sleeping brain is not fully offline. It is monitoring quietly, without waking you, for anything that changes what tomorrow might require. The relationship between sleep and working memory has implications for future simulation that go beyond general cognitive performance. Working memory is the mental workspace where plans are assembled, consequences evaluated, and scenarios played out before action is taken. Sleep deprivation measurably reduces working memory capacity. But research suggests sleep specifically supports the kind of extended working memory operations required to simulate multi-step future scenarios, holding the beginning, middle, and anticipated end of a sequence simultaneously in mind. A well-rested working memory is a larger stage on which the mind can run more complete, more nuanced rehearsals of what might come. A depleted one collapses those rehearsals prematurely. Halfway through tonight's journey, the central question has grown both more specific and more compelling. How does your brain simulate the future during the night? The hippocampus and entorhinal cortex provide the scenario fragments. Slow-wave sleep transfers and generalizes them. REM sleep recombines them without logical constraint. The amygdala assigns emotional weight to simulated outcomes. The default mode network projects social and self-referential futures. Sharp wave ripples compress and broadcast those simulations across the cortex. And all of it happens quietly, without your awareness, while the rest of you simply rests. Sleep is not the absence of preparation. It is the most essential form of preparation you will do today. Sleep and imagination share a biological connection that runs deeper than common metaphor suggests. Both rely on the constructive capacity of the hippocampus, its ability to assemble novel scenes and sequences from stored fragments rather than retrieving fixed records. Research by neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire and colleagues found that individuals with hippocampal damage had difficulty not only remembering their past, but imagining new scenarios in any domain. Sleep, which maintains and enriches hippocampal function through nightly consolidation, is maintaining the very architecture of human imagination. Every night, the hippocampus is gently restocked with the material it needs to build forward. The imagination that feels free and spontaneous is, in a real sense, built in the dark. Let each breath remind you that time is yours, a separate stream only you are living right now, while the vast mind continues its quiet work, expanding, connecting, preparing. This moment, this breath, is uniquely yours. Somewhere below the surface of awareness, the brain's simulation engine continues without you. You don't need to help it. You only need to rest here. Cherish this particular stillness, knowing that the work is being done while you simply allow it. Dreams about interpersonal conflict are among the most commonly reported dream experiences, and research suggests they serve a specific future preparation function. By simulating difficult social scenarios during sleep, arguments, misunderstandings, uncertain confrontations, the sleeping brain appears to rehearse emotional responses and test possible reactions in a space where the stakes are low. Individuals who report more vivid social dreams show better next-day emotional regulation in interpersonal contexts. The uncomfortable dream may be the brain quietly practicing a conversation that hasn't yet happened, in a private rehearsal space where the cost is only the slight unease of remembering it. The quality of prospective memory, the ability to remember to perform a future action at the right time, is improved by sleep. Prospective memory failures are the small and sometimes significant lapses of daily life. The forgotten call, the missed deadline, the message never passed on. Studies show that sleep enhances the brain's ability to encode and retrieve time-based intentions. The sleeping brain does not only simulate open-ended futures, it also maintains the specific, structured commitments made to the future self. Sleep is how your intentions survive the night intact. The neurochemistry of morning is partly shaped by what happened during the night's sleep. REM, sleep. By suppressing stress neurochemicals during overnight emotional processing, allows the brain to wake with a recalibrated threat baseline. Slow wave sleep, by consolidating facts and skills, allows the brain to wake with more accessible knowledge. A good night's sleep does not just feel like a fresh start. Neurochemically and functionally, it is one. The morning is, in a significant degree, constructed by the night that preceded it. Stress hormones, particularly cortisol, impair the hippocampal processes that support future simulation during sleep when they remain elevated into the night. Chronic stress elevates evening cortisol and disrupts slow-wave sleep architecture, creating a cycle in which the stressor that most demands future simulation also most impairs the sleep that provides it. Understanding this cycle is not a reason for despair, but for gentleness. Whatever made the day difficult does not require solving in the dark. The sleeping brain is better equipped for that work when it is allowed to rest first. The night asks only that you stop, so that it can begin. The The sleeping brain allocates its consolidation resources strategically, prioritizing memories tagged as significant during waking. Emotional arousal, surprise, and relevance to active concerns all serve as importance tags. The things you care most about, the relationships being navigated, the decisions being weighed, the uncertainties that followed you to bed, receive the most dedicated overnight processing. The sleeping brain is not neutral or random in its attention. It is, in a meaningful sense, working on what matters most to you, quietly and without being asked. Research on aging and sleep has found that the future simulation capacities most vulnerable to age-related sleep changes are those requiring flexible recombination, the creative and associative functions supported by REM sleep. More structured, sequential forms of future planning appear more resilient to age-related sleep changes. This suggests that protecting REM sleep across the lifespan is particularly valuable for maintaining cognitive flexibility and creative foresight. Regular sleep schedules, reduced alcohol intake at night, and treatment of sleep disorders all help preserve this capacity into later decades. The connection between sleep and emotional intelligence may be partly mediated by the brain's overnight future simulation processes. Emotional intelligence requires, among other things, the ability to anticipate how another person will feel in a given situation, a form of social simulation. Sleep supports both the emotional processing that calibrates these simulations and the working memory capacity that holds multiple social perspectives simultaneously. Studies comparing emotional intelligence measures before and after sleep deprivation show consistent declines in social anticipation, accuracy, and perspective-taking. How well you understand the people in your life tomorrow is, in part, determined by how well you sleep tonight. The transition between sleep stages is not a sharp switch, but a gradual shift. The brain moving fluidly between states of different depth, different neurochemistry, and different processing function. During these transitions, particularly the hypnagogic state between waking and sleep, unusual thoughts, images, and associations arise spontaneously. Some researchers suggest this transitional state provides a fertile window for creative future simulation, the prefrontal constraint relaxing while associative dreaming begins to surface. Many artists and scientists have reported insights arising in this twilight zone. It is neither fully asleep nor fully awake. It may be the most creatively open state the brain regularly enters. Memory integration during sleep appears to proceed through a specific sequence across the night. First, the hippocampus binds the elements of the memory together. Then, during subsequent sleep, connections to related cortical knowledge are strengthened. Over multiple nights, the memory becomes progressively decontextualized, freed from the specific time and place of its origin, and available as a generalized principle. This multi-night integration is why sleep's contribution to learning unfolds over many nights, each one extending the network a little further. The brain's preparation for an uncertain future is never fully the work of a single night. Waking in the night with a solution to a problem that seemed intractable at bedtime is physiologically explicable. Early, slow-wave sleep consolidates the factual components of the problem. Later, REM cycles recombine those components in novel ways. By the time waking occurs, particularly just after a REM period, the solving combination may already be sitting near the surface of awareness. The night has been working on it all along. What feels like sudden insight is the final delivery of a long and quiet overnight process. The brain regions that support future simulation during sleep are among the most energetically expensive in the human body. The prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the default mode network consume disproportionate amounts of glucose and oxygen relative to their size. This metabolic cost may partly explain why these regions are so sensitive to sleep loss. They are already operating near capacity during wakefulness, and disrupted sleep leaves insufficient recovery time. The energetic price of simulation is real, and sleep is how that price is paid. Some of the most compelling evidence for sleep as a future preparation system comes from the study of decision-making under uncertainty. When people face ambiguous choices with incomplete information, sleep-rested individuals are better calibrated, more realistic about probabilities, and more capable of holding multiple scenarios in mind simultaneously. Sleep-deprived individuals tend toward overconfidence in some conditions and excessive caution in others, both reflecting a simulation system unable to run the necessary projections fully. Under uncertainty, the best preparation available is often sleep. The brain's capacity for mental time travel, the ability to project the mind backward into remembered experience and forward into imagined future, appears to have evolved as a survival advantage. Some species show evidence of episodic-like memory tied to hippocampal complexity, though the full scope of mental time travel across species remains actively debated. In humans, this capacity reaches its most elaborate form, allowing detailed, emotionally nuanced projections of possible futures across long time horizons. Sleep preserves and develops this capacity. Every night, the evolutionary history of your species expresses itself in the quiet architecture of your sleeping brain. The content of your last thoughts before sleep appears to influence the emotional tone of overnight processing. Research on sleep onset suggests that thoughts and images arising just before sleep can seed the simulation content of subsequent sleep stages, particularly early REM. This is not a precise or guaranteed mechanism, but it offers a gentle rationale for the ancient human practice of ending the day with gratitude or calm intention. Not superstition, but a soft influence on the direction of the sleeping brain's overnight work. The last story you tell yourself before sleep may shape the simulation that follows. Sleep architecture in adolescence undergoes a profound circadian delay, a biological shift that causes teenagers to naturally fall asleep and wake later. This is not laziness but developmental reality. During extended sleep hours, the adolescent brain integrates the cognitive, emotional, and social complexity of a period of intensive future preparation. School schedules that force early waking interrupt this work at its most demanding point. The teenage brain needs more sleep precisely because it has more future to prepare for, and because the simulations it needs to run are among the most complex it will ever generate. The phenomenon of sleep inertia, the grogginess that follows sudden awakening, particularly from deep slow-wave sleep, reflects the cost of interrupting the brain's overnight simulation processes mid-cycle. During sleep inertia, the prefrontal cortex is slow to return to full function. Cognitive performance is temporarily impaired, and mood regulation is disrupted. These effects typically clear within 20 to 30 minutes of natural waking. They are a reminder that the sleeping brain's preparation work is time-sensitive, best completed within its natural architecture rather than cut short before the final REM cycles have run their full course. Some researchers describe overnight consolidation as offline optimization, the brain fine-tuning its models of the world without the interference of incoming sensory data. When the external world is muted, the brain is free to rearrange its internal models more freely, testing configurations that waking demands would never permit. The result of a night of offline optimization is a brain that fits its model of reality a little better, and is therefore a little more capable of predicting what reality will do next. The brain's reward system, the dopaminergic circuits running from the ventral tegmental area through the nucleus accumbens and prefrontal cortex, is involved in future simulation during sleep, specifically in the evaluation of anticipated positive outcomes. Early evidence suggests that during REM sleep, the reward system may participate in simulating not only threatening futures but desirable ones, running projections of possible rewards and assigning motivational salience to what might feel worth pursuing upon waking. Sleep is not only how you prepare for what you fear, it is also how you prepare for what you want. The role of sleep in language acquisition is partly a future preparation function. Learning a language is not just about storing past exposure, but about building a generative model capable of producing novel sentences never heard before. Sleep-dependent consolidation of language learning appears to support exactly this generative capacity. The brain, extracting underlying rules and patterns that allow language to be applied to new, unanticipated situations. Every night of sleep after language learning is a night of building the linguistic machinery for conversations that haven't happened yet. Individual differences in sleep duration and architecture are associated with meaningful differences in the quality of future simulation. People who consistently sleep fewer than 7 hours per night show measurably reduced performance on measures of prospective thinking, creative problem-solving, and emotional anticipation. People who sleep 8 or more hours, particularly with robust REM cycles, show some of the strongest future simulation performance. These differences reflect the brain's straightforward dependence on sufficient time to complete its overnight preparation. Protecting sleep duration is, in a real sense, protecting cognitive foresight. The relationship between sleep and intuition may be the most quietly consequential finding in this area. Intuition, the rapid and seemingly effortless recognition of a situation as fitting a familiar pattern, depends on the rich, well-consolidated schema networks that sleep builds over many nights of integration. What feels like a gut sense is often a lightning-fast simulation run on compressed, deeply practiced models. Sleep is how those models become fast enough to feel instantaneous. The quiet knowing that arrives without explanation may have been built, night by night, in the hours when the world was dark and still. In some indigenous knowledge traditions, dreams are treated as messages from a wiser inner self, signals from a layer of knowing that ordinary daily life obscures. Modern neuroscience, while framed in very different terms, reaches a surprisingly compatible conclusion. The sleeping brain processes information in ways the waking brain cannot easily replicate, and the products of that processing, insights, emotional shifts, new associations, are genuinely valuable. This is not a mystical claim, but an empirical one. Whatever the tradition through which you understand it, the wisdom of the night is real. Research on how the brain responds to surprise reveals a meaningful dimension of overnight future simulation. The sleeping brain appears to preferentially process experiences that deviated from expectation during the day. Surprise, errors, and unexpected outcomes receive disproportionate overnight attention, because they carry the most information about where the brain's current model of the world is inaccurate. Sleep-based processing of surprise is, in the most direct sense, updating the simulation. The sleeping brain learns most from what it failed to predict, preparing itself to predict better the next time. The experience of flow, described by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi as deep absorption in a well-matched challenge, shares something with sleep's simulation function. Both states, flow and deep sleep, appear to give the narrative, self-monitoring mind a temporary release from its own vigilant management. Both involve the brain integrating experience and knowledge in ways that the effortful, consciously directed mind cannot fully replicate. The resting brain and the fully absorbed brain are both, in their different ways, doing the work that future readiness requires. How does your brain simulate the future during the night? Sleep is not the pause between one day and the next. It is not the absence of life, but a different form of it. Interior, active, forward-oriented. Sleep isn't just for remembering the past. It is your brain rehearsing the futures you haven't lived yet. Every night you sleep, you are investing in your own tomorrow, quietly, completely, in the dark. That is the big idea at the center of tonight's journey. And every fact that came before it has been another way of seeing it. You might be feeling tired now. That's exactly right. Breathe slowly. Feel the cycles. Sleep cycles through its stages. The brain cycles through its quiet work. Your breath cycles in and out without instruction. You are also part of that eternal rhythm. You don't have to hold on to anything. Let everything settle in its own order, like the stages of sleep arriving one after another. Unhurried, unresisting, simply doing what they were designed to do. We're almost there now. The brain at rest is not empty. It is full of its own quiet activity, gently reviewing and filing what the day has left behind. Rest is not a gap in experience. It is a particular kind of experience. One the brain has always known how to use when given the space and time to do so. The work continues even when it is invisible. Memory traces formed during waking become more stable with each night of sleep, and stability is what allows them to serve as reliable building blocks for future simulation. An unstable memory is an unreliable simulation component. Sleep is how raw experience becomes solid enough to support the weight of anticipation. This is not only episodic memories, the specific events of your life. but semantic memories. The general factual knowledge accumulated across years of living. Semantic consolidation during sleep transforms isolated facts into connected networks of understanding. Those networks become the reference library the future simulation system draws from when it begins constructing what might come next. Research has found that even a brief period of sleep, a nap as short as 20 minutes, can measurably improve alertness and the brain's ability to process and consolidate what it has recently learned. Even without completing a full sleep cycle, the resting brain begins to sort and structure what it has learned. The napping brain is already extracting order from experience, preparing gently for what comes next. The phrase "sleep on it" has been empirically validated across dozens of studies. Decisions that feel complicated or risky at day's end are often clearer in the morning, not because the world changed, but because the brain's simulation of the decision space was quietly refined overnight. The options haven't shifted. The emotional noise has settled. The pathways have been reorganized. Sleeping on a decision is not avoidance. It is, in the most practical sense, preparation. Emotional future simulation, imagining how you will feel in a future situation, is a cognitive skill that sleep directly supports. Well-rested people are more accurate in predicting their own emotional responses to upcoming events than sleep-deprived people. The rested brain has run the emotional rehearsal. It knows, with greater precision, what is likely to matter and what is not. Sleep is, in a quiet sense, a form of self-knowledge. The sleeping brain integrates new experiences with old ones, and this integration is what allows yesterday's lesson to apply to tomorrow's unfamiliar situation. Without sleep's integrative work, knowledge stays local, situation-specific, difficult to carry forward. With sleep, knowledge loosens from the specific memory that held it and becomes available to any future situation that resembles it, even distantly. That is how learning becomes wisdom. Fear of the future, the anxious rehearsal of worst-case scenarios, is partly a misfiring of the simulation system running without adequate sleep-based calibration. A rested simulation runs with better emotional data, more complete scenario coverage, and more realistic weighting of likely outcomes. Sleep does not eliminate uncertainty, but it makes uncertainty more navigable and the mind more steady within it. The brain continues learning during sleep in a meaningful sense. It is not absorbing new external information, but discovering new relationships within the information it already holds. These internal discoveries are often experienced as quiet clarity in the morning, or a gentle shift in perspective that arrived without effort. The sleeping brain teaches itself, revisiting what it knows and finding, in the spaces between things, something new. The relationship between sleep and confidence is underappreciated. Well-rested people tend to approach uncertain situations with greater steadiness, not because they possess more information, but because their simulations are more complete. They have, overnight, considered more of the possible outcomes. The unknown feels less threatening when the brain has already visited it, quietly and without announcement, at some point during the night. Deep, slow-wave sleep is most associated with physical restoration, cellular repair, immune consolidation, and metabolic regulation. But this restoration is also, in a meaningful sense, future preparation. A body repaired is a body better equipped for what the next day brings. Every slow wave moving through the brain is the night attending to the body as carefully as it attends to the mind. The architecture of a single night of sleep is the architecture of a preparation system. Early night. Stabilize the record. Middle night. Integrate and generalize. Late night. Recombine and simulate. Then dawn. Deliver the prepared mind to the waking day. The order is not arbitrary. Each phase builds on the last. The night has a structure, and that structure is purpose. Sleep researchers have noted that the emotional tone of dreams tends to shift over the course of the night. Early dreams stay closer to recent experience, grounded and familiar. Later dreams, those arising from the final REM cycles near dawn, tend to be more emotionally complex, more socially intricate, reaching further into what might be. The deepest simulations arrive last, in the hours closest to waking. The capacity for sleep-dependent future preparation has a developmental arc extending across an entire lifetime. From the REM-heavy sleep of infancy building the brain's first internal models of the world, through adolescence integrating the complexity of a life beginning to unfold, through adulthood consolidating what experience has gathered. Sleep is preparation at every stage, from the very first night to the very last. The relationship between daytime exercise and sleep quality is also a relationship between exercise and future simulation. Physical activity enhances slow-wave sleep depth, increases sleep spindle density, and improves REM consolidation. The sleeper who exercised today will tonight consolidate memories more deeply, integrate knowledge more broadly, and simulate tomorrow more clearly. Movement during the day is investment in the night. Lucid dreamers who practice specific future scenarios during their dreams, rehearsing a speech, a difficult encounter, a performance, report in preliminary research some improvement in their waking execution of those scenarios. The simulation during sleep and the behavior during waking are not as separate as they appear. What is practiced carefully in the dream can carry forward, quietly and reliably, into the day. In the final hours before waking, REM periods lengthen and dream content becomes increasingly vivid and forward-oriented. Many people report their most emotionally meaningful dreams in the hour before they naturally wake. These late-morning REM periods may represent the simulation engine running its most complete projections, the fullest rehearsals of possibility that the night produces. The last dream before waking may be the most prepared version of you. Every culture in human history has understood sleep as a portal to something beyond ordinary waking consciousness. Modern neuroscience, in its precise and careful language, is reaching a strikingly compatible conclusion. Something meaningful happens in the sleeping mind that cannot happen in the waking one. We are only beginning to understand its full shape, and the understanding is already profound. Sleep protects the brain's ability to imagine. Damage, disease, and deprivation each erode the simulation capacity in predictable ways. Protecting sleep is protecting imagination itself. And protecting imagination is protecting the uniquely human capacity to live not only in what is, but in what might be. The future is not a place that exists already. It is something the mind builds, night by night, in the dark. There are people tonight, in every city, every time zone, lying in the dark with their eyes closed and their minds quietly working. Their hippocampi are firing in compressed sequences. Their REM systems are recombining the fragments of their days. Each of them, in the silence of sleep, is preparing for a tomorrow they haven't seen. This is one of the most ordinary and most profound things that happens on this planet every single night. The word rest descends from Old English, meaning to be still, to cease from motion. But sleep does not merely cease. It moves. It reconstructs. It reaches forward. What feels like stillness from the outside is, from the inside, a continuous and purposeful motion toward tomorrow. You are never more actively preparing for the future than when you appear to be doing nothing at all. The body holds the day's unfinished business in ways the mind rarely notices. A tightening that arrived in the afternoon and never fully left. A quiet vigilance that continued long past its usefulness. Sleep gives the body permission to set it all down, not all at once, but gradually, gently, the way the night grows quieter as the hours pass. Sleep isn't just for remembering the past. It is your brain rehearsing every future you've allowed yourself to hope for. The mind that feels uncertain by day is quietly becoming more certain, more capable, more ready. You may not remember what was simulated tonight, but tomorrow, you will feel it, in the decision that comes a little more easily, the moment of clarity that arrives without effort. That is what the night gave you. That is what it always gives. The last thoughts before sleep may seed the night's simulation in small but genuine ways. What you carry gently into the dark shapes the direction of the work, not by force or instruction, but by the quiet presence of what matters most to you. The night takes it and turns it, carefully and without hurry, into preparation for what comes. How does your brain simulate the future during the night? It does it with everything it has. Every memory carried into the dark. Every unresolved question. Every open-ended hope. Woven together in the hours you cannot watch. And at the edge of dawn, it hands you back something you did not have when you closed your eyes. A mind a little more ready. A self a little more prepared. Sleep isn't just for remembering the past. It is your brain rehearsing the futures you haven't lived yet. And so, our quiet journey through the sleeping brain comes gently to a close. We've traveled from the first sharp wave ripple carrying a possible future across the cortex, to the long REM hours, where logic releases its grip and imagination opens wider, to the moment just before dawn when the simulation engine delivers what the night has built. From the hippocampus assembling tomorrow's fragments, to the amygdala assigning emotional weight to futures not yet lived, to the simple and profound truth that rest is preparation. That is what the night was always doing for you. The sleeping mind reminds us that preparation happens in the quiet spaces, not only in the striving ones. Much of the most meaningful work the brain does occurs in darkness, in stillness, without your knowledge or effort. By allowing rest, you allow the future to be built. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about consciousness itself, yours, mine, everyone listening tonight. All awareness quietly resting in the same dark. You are not alone in this. You are not separate from this. The mind that wonders about the future is the same mind that builds the future. Night by night, without effort or instruction, let your entire being dissolve into the ocean of rest, into the space before thought, into the place where tomorrow is being assembled while you simply breathe. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left. Only peace. This thoughtful exploration of the sleeping mind builds bridges between searching minds. A gentle like or subscribe helps another tired mind find this sanctuary. One sleepy soul at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight, farther than most journeys take you. You can allow these thoughts of sleep and simulation and the quiet intelligence of the night to fade now, like lantern light softening at the edge of a dream, leaving only a still, unhurried calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if the earth itself were gently drawing you down into something safe and ancient. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way a slow river carries a leaf, smoothly, inevitably, into a place where time and weight no longer ask anything of you. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting, ready to continue the journey. But if they are closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow will still be there. The questions you carry will still be there. But the sleeping mind will have worked on them while you rested. And by morning, they may feel just a little more like something you can hold. Rest well, sleepy one. And remember, the night is not empty. It is full of quiet preparation, and all of it is for you. Good night.